Famous or infamous, one of the best-known people on the planet ever.
I was afraid something's not right. Michael told me that they were going to murder him.
People thought they'd seen everything when it came to Michael Jackson. But now, the internet has hit a new level of disbelief. Rumors are flying that Michael Jackson has been spotted, alive, at 65 years old. So now everyone's asking the same thing. Is this just another bizarre internet theory? Or did the king of pop somehow moonwalk his way back into reality? Whatever this is, let's get into the video. The influence of a mother and a father. Michael Jackson's upbringing was a battle for survival within the confines of his own home. His father, Joe Jackson, was strict and often used a belt to discipline him, leaving a lasting impact on his early years. On the other hand, his mother, Catherine, was loving and caring, offering warmth amid the chaos. She gave up her own singing aspirations to raise her family and maintain the strong faith of a Jehovah's Witness. In the whirlwind of emotions within the Jackson household, Michael also faced the deep sadness of losing his infant brother, Brandon, a tragedy that would forever haunt him. Catherine Jackson, with her clarinet and piano skills, had once dreamed of a career as a country singer. Yet she put those dreams aside to help provide for her family. Her faith remained unwavering as she worked part-time at Sears, all while keeping the home together. Her sacrifices were evident, and Michael, no doubt, felt the warmth and care she gave him. On the flip side, there was Joe Jackson. His role as a father was far more complex, marked by strictness and an iron fist. By day, Joe worked as a crane operator, but his true passion lay in playing guitar for a local R&B band called the Falcons. However, his controlling nature and eventual abusive methods would cast a shadow over his children's lives, especially Michael's. This part of Michael's past would eventually contribute to the deeper emotional struggles he would face in the future. The Jackson family was large: 3 sisters, Rebby, LaToya, and Janet, and 5 brothers: Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Randy. But amidst the chaos, tragedy struck early. Marlon's twin brother, Brandon, died at birth, leaving a profound void that would follow the family throughout their lives. Yet, Michael and Marlon would continue to press forward, carving out their places in music at an early age. In 1964, they joined the Jackson Brothers Band, their father's creation, and Michael, just a boy, found himself playing the congas and tambourine. These were the early years, filled with music, but behind the scenes, things weren't as cheerful. Joe Jackson's method of punishment was well known. Imagine a child, not even a teenager, facing a father with a belt in his hand for the smallest mistake. Michael bore this physical and emotional pain, which Joe later admitted to using regularly as a form of discipline. Although common in those days, this practice left lasting scars on Michael, which would shape his future in ways no one could predict. However, the story of Michael Jackson would not be defined solely by pain and punishment. In 1965, a breakthrough came that would change everything. Joe moved his son from the back of the group to the spotlight, placing him as the lead vocalist of the newly named Jackson 5. The shift was monumental. Michael's voice, already powerful for his young age, took center stage, and the Jackson 5 began winning talent shows with their infectious energy. The group quickly gained traction, opening for big names like Sam and Dave and Gladys Knight, while performing on the Chitlin circuit, which was a grueling but necessary path for young black artists in the 60s. These venues were far from glamorous, but they were crucial training grounds for the Jackson 5, where they honed their skills and began to build a loyal fan base. It wasn't until August 1967, when the group won an amateur night at Harlem's Apollo Theater, that their dream took a major leap forward. It was a moment of validation, a turning point that opened the doors to the big leagues. A music legend begins to rise. Back home in Gary, Indiana, the Jackson 5 recorded their first single, Big Boy. It was their first step into the world of professional music, a leap that would take them far beyond the small venues they had once played. It wasn't long before the Jackson 5, led by a young Michael with his unmistakable voice, would become a household name, capturing the hearts of millions worldwide. But this was just the beginning. The world had no idea it was about to witness the rise of a music legend. In 1968, the Jackson 5 caught their first big break when they signed with Steeltown Records. Yet, fate had bigger plans. Bobby Taylor, from Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers, saw something special in the group. He decided to take them straight to Motown, the music powerhouse where stars were made. The excitement in the Jackson family was impossible to miss. They packed up and moved to Los Angeles, a city where dreams either soared or crashed. Motown had a master plan. Diana Ross would personally introduce the Jackson 5 to the world. Their first big TV moment came during the Miss Black America pageant in 1969. Even though the group performed together, it was obvious who the real star was. He shined so brightly that the audience could barely look away. Soon after, everything changed. In January 1970, their single, I Want You Back, exploded onto the scene, racing straight to #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. The success didn't stop there. The Jackson 5 went on to release 3 more #1 hits in a row: A BC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. Fame and fortune poured in faster than they could have imagined. By 1971, the family upgraded their life, moving into a sprawling estate in Encino, California. But behind all the success, it was clear that he wasn't just another member of the group anymore. He was evolving into something else, America's next teen idol. Between 1972 and 1975, while still performing with his brothers, Michael managed to launch a solo career. He released 4 albums: Got to Be There, Ben, Music and Me, and Forever Michael. Against all odds, a song about a rat named Ben became a massive hit. Somehow, he made even that seem magical. Even as he found solo success, he remained loyal to his family. The Jackson 5 continued pushing boundaries, mixing different music styles and drawing bigger crowds. But there was a growing problem. Motown kept a tight grip on their creative choices, and they were tired of it. One unforgettable moment happened during a performance of Dancing Machine on Soul Train. He introduced a new dance move, the robot. It was slick, sharp, and instantly iconic. It was also a clear sign that he was itching to break free and experiment more. In 1975, the group finally made a bold decision. They left Motown, signed with Epic Records, and rebranded themselves as the Jacksons. Jermaine, however, chose to stay behind and continue his solo path with Motown, while their younger brother Randy stepped in to complete the group. The risk paid off. Over the next several years, the Jacksons toured across the world and released 6 albums between 1976 and 1984. During this time, Michael became the group's main creative force, writing songs like Shake Your Body, Down to the Ground, and Can You Feel It, further proving that his talents ran deeper than just singing and dancing. A new chapter in New York. Then came a life-changing opportunity. In 1977, he moved to New York City to play the Scarecrow in The Wiz, a musical film adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. He starred alongside Diana Ross, his longtime mentor and friend. Although The Wiz didn't become a box office success, it led to something far more important. It introduced him to Quincy Jones, the legendary producer who would later help craft some of the biggest albums in music history. Life in New York wasn't just about acting and recording. he dove headfirst into the city's wild creative scene, especially at the famous Studio 54 nightclub. There, surrounded by flashing lights and an emerging hip-hop culture, he found fresh inspiration for his music. Around this time, he also started paying more attention to his appearance. In 1978, he underwent his first cosmetic surgery, a nose job. It seemed like a small change back then, but it quietly marked the beginning of a complicated and much-discussed relationship with his image. When Off the Wall dropped in 1979, something shifted. This was the birth of a solo powerhouse. The album blended pop, soul, and funk so smoothly that it practically danced out of the speakers. It delivered 4 major hits in the US alone, including Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You. And it didn't stop there. Over 20 million copies flew off shelves worldwide, and suddenly, he was the Michael Jackson. In 1980, the awards came in like a flood. He picked up 3 American Music Awards, including Favorite Soul R&B Album. He also won a Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance. Still, even with all that success, he didn't feel satisfied. He believed Off the Wall had more potential and should have made an even bigger splash. So, he locked in on the next goal, to outdo himself. By the time the 1980s rolled in, he had already secured the highest royalty rate in music history. He was getting 37% of all wholesale album profits, unheard of at the time. This wasn't just about money, though. It was about control, influence, and raising the bar for what a pop artist could achieve. And he wasn't done yet, not even close. Then came the question that would define a generation. What exactly made Thriller more than just an album? Well, the short answer? Everything. But if you zoom into 1983, there's one moment that stamped it into music history forever. He appeared at the Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever Special, in a glittering black jacket and a single white glove sparkling like it came straight from another planet. The audience wasn't ready, but the moment he hit the moonwalk, time basically froze. British Vogue crowned him the King of Cool, saying no one had ever made dancing backwards look so fashionable. But while the world was learning the moonwalk, he was busy experimenting in the studio. From 1981 to 1983, he collaborated with Queen's Freddie Mercury. They worked on a handful of songs together, including State of Shock, Victory, and There Must Be More to Life Than This. It was supposed to be a powerful duet album that blended rock and pop in a way no one had heard before. But things didn't go as planned. Freddie was stunned when he showed up to the studio and found that Michael had brought an unexpected guest, a full-sized llama. Yes, an actual llama in a recording session, and that wasn't the only issue. Their lifestyles clashed, and it became clear that the magic wasn't going to last. The song, There Must Be More to Life Than This, sat in a vault until 2014. Meanwhile, State of Shock got re-recorded with Mick Jagger and appeared on the Jacksons' Victory album instead. The year that changed everything. By the time 1982 arrived, the music industry was already watching him closely. But no one, not even him, knew just how massive his next move would be. It started small, just a gentle, heartfelt song called Someone in the Dark, recorded for the E.T. the Extraterrestrial audiobook. A sweet little project, the kind that keeps an artist's name floating in the air. But that was just the warm-up. What came next shook the entire world. Later that same year, he released Thriller, and it exploded. It became the best-selling album in history, moving around 70 million copies across the globe. Numbers that big stopped feeling real after a while, but the impact was impossible to ignore. For 37 straight weeks, Thriller ruled the Billboard 200 chart, and it refused to leave the top 10 for a staggering 80 weeks. 7 of its songs made it into the Billboard Hot 100 Top 10, something no one else had ever done before. Tracks like Billie Jean, Beat It, and Wanna Be Startin' Somethin' were cultural earthquakes. After that, the trophies started piling up. At the 26th Annual Grammy Awards, Thriller pulled off 8 Grammys in one night. A record so big, only Santana has matched it. He and Quincy Jones took home Producers of the Year, and Thriller was crowned Album of the Year. Beat It won Record of the Year and Best Rock Vocal Performance, while Billie Jean picked up awards for Best R&B Song and Best R&B Vocal Performance. Behind the scenes, Bruce Swedian's engineering helped make the album sound as big as it felt. But the Grammys weren't the end. At the 11th Annual American Music Awards, he won another 8 awards. He made history again, becoming the youngest person ever to receive the Award of Merit. The Thriller music video was a revolution. Clocking in at nearly 14 minutes, it played more like a short film than a traditional video. There was choreography with zombies, spooky dialogue, and special effects that felt straight out of a movie. The video doubled the album's sales and picked up a Grammy for Best Music Video, Long Form. That's when people stopped calling him just a pop star. He was now a global icon. Time magazine called him a one-man rescue team for the music business. The New York Times put it simply, in the world of pop, there was Michael Jackson, and then there was everyone else. The success didn't stop at music. He won a $1.5 million legal settlement from Brotman Medical Center, and in recognition, they opened a burn center in his name. His business moves were just as big as his performances. In the late 80s, he signed another massive deal with Pepsi, $10 million, spread across 20 countries. That money helped fuel his Bad album and the world tour that followed. He had already changed music. Now he was building an empire. The final bow with his brothers. Then came the Victory Tour in 1984. He hit the road again with his brothers, performing across the U.S. for over 2 million fans. Every stadium was packed. Every song echoed across America. On the surface, it was a celebration. But for Michael, it was also a goodbye. At the final show at Dodger Stadium, he stunned the audience. Right there on stage, he let everyone know this was his last tour with his brothers. From that moment on, he was going solo. For real this time. He didn't waste any time making history again. In 1985, he teamed up with Lionel Richie to write We Are the World, a song created to raise money for famine relief. But this wasn't just a hit single. It became a global movement. Artists came together, voices merged, and the song took off. It sold over 20 million copies, raised $63 million for charity, and won 4 Grammys, including Song of the Year. It showed that pop music could really change lives. While the world was dancing to his music, he was thinking like a businessman. Paul McCartney once told him how valuable music publishing was, how owning the rights to songs could mean steady income forever. Michael listened. In 1983, he started investing in music catalogs. Then, in 1985, he made a move no one saw coming. He bought the ATV Music Publishing catalog for $47.5 million. That deal gave him the rights to most of the Beatles' songs. It was bold, surprising, and genius. Suddenly, he was one of the most powerful figures in the music industry. But while he was winning on stage and in business meetings, his appearance was sparking non-stop media talk. People noticed his skin was getting lighter. His once medium-brown complexion had noticeably changed by the mid-1980s. The tabloids went wild with speculation. Rumors flew that he was bleaching his skin or trying to erase his identity. In reality, his doctor, Arnold Klein, explained in 1983 that Michael had vitiligo, a condition that causes the skin to lose its pigment in patches. He also had discoid lupus, another skin-related illness. By 1986, the effects were clear. He used makeup and possibly medical creams to even out his skin tone for public appearances. He always said he wasn't trying to be someone else. He was just managing a medical condition. Still, the public didn't always believe him, and hearing that people thought he was rejecting his race deeply hurt him. During this difficult period, he grew closer to Dr. Klein and his assistant, Debbie Rowe. Their friendship deepened over time, and Debbie eventually became his second wife and the mother of his first 2 children. She was one of the few people he let into his private world. But as his career kept soaring, his physical transformation became more obvious and harder to ignore. He addressed it himself. In his 1988 autobiography, and again in a 1993 interview, he admitted he had 2 nose jobs and a surgery to add a cleft to his chin. He said he had been trying to create a dancer's body, lean, controlled, and sculpted. The pressure to maintain a perfect image was enormous. Then came 1986, and with it, one of the strangest headlines of all. Suddenly, there were stories that Michael was sleeping inside a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to slow down the aging process. Newspapers couldn't get enough of the idea. The thought of a pop superstar lying inside a futuristic glass box at night felt like science fiction, and the public loved it. Michael later denied that he actually used the chamber. He explained that the photo of him inside it was meant to promote a movie he was planning, a space-themed story about a boy who couldn't grow old. The photo was deliberately leaked to the National Enquirer as part of a publicity stunt. He knew how to play with his image, how to create mystique. But in this case, the stunt worked a little too well. People believed it. Some still do. And then, things got weirder. There were endless stories about eye surgeries. Some claimed he had his eyelids lifted to make his features more angelic. Others insisted he had injections to preserve his famously high voice. Around the same time, rumors exploded about his bond with Elizabeth Taylor. One story said he had proposed to her. Another claimed he'd built a shrine in her honor. Whether true or not, their friendship was real and intense. She was one of the few people in his orbit who understood what it felt like to be watched every day, judged by millions, and yet feel deeply alone. His longtime manager, Frank DeLeo, dismissed most of these stories as nonsense. But when it came to the oxygen chamber, he casually confirmed that yes, Michael did own one, whether he slept in it or not. That was still up for debate. DeLeo said Michael believed it was good for his health. He had grown increasingly interested in wellness, holistic treatments, strange gadgets, and anything that promised youth and energy. By the time he toured Japan, the media circus had transformed him into something otherworldly. Michael brought his pet chimpanzee, Bubbles. Photos of him and Bubbles in matching outfits quickly made the rounds. The press had a field day. Suddenly, Michael was a walking fairy tale. Journalists compared him to Snow White, surrounded by animals and living in a fantasy world. His soft voice, his closeness with pets, and his eccentric choices turned him into a mythical figure, and not always in a flattering way. The nickname that haunted him. By the late 80s, Michael Jackson had turned into the kind of headline that editors prayed for. One of the most bizarre rumors came in 1987, when reports claimed he tried to purchase the bones of Joseph Merrick, better known as the Elephant Man. According to the Chicago Tribune, his team allegedly offered $1 million to the London Hospital Medical College. They declined, but the damage was done. People didn't care about the details. They cared that the story existed. Whether it was true or not didn't seem to matter. Michael's name was now forever linked to a skeleton, and that made him seem stranger than ever. By September 1986, the British press had already started to brand him with a nickname that would follow him for decades. A tabloid ran a story about the hyperbaric chamber and casually slapped the phrase "Wacko Jacko" in the headline. It was meant to be catchy, but for Michael, it was personal. He absolutely hated the nickname. Aside from being cruel, it had disturbing racial undertones that traced back to 19th century stereotypes, something few people understood at the time. But he definitely did. That name turned him into a caricature. It flattened every part of his identity into something sensational, weird, and dehumanizing. And once that nickname took off, it never really left. No matter what he did, that label was always lurking in the background, thrown into headlines as if it were part of his actual name. But while the world was busy obsessing over rumors, Michael's creative energy was nowhere near slowing down. In fact, 1986 marked one of his most ambitious collaborations yet. He teamed up with George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola for Captain EO, a 17-minute 3D musical movie made specifically for Disney theme parks. With a $30 million budget, the film was a full-blown spectacle that played at Disneyland, Epcot, and even Tokyo Disneyland. While his artistry thrived, Michael's relationship with religion quietly changed. He had been raised as a Jehovah's Witness and followed the faith for most of his early career. But by the late 1980s, things had become complicated. In 1984, the church publicly criticized his Thriller video, calling it inappropriate and unholy. To avoid being disfellowshipped, Michael had issued a statement through one of their publications, disowning the video and promising to stay within the church's values. But that relationship didn't hold. By 1987, according to Ebony magazine, he had stepped away from the church entirely. The separation was more of a quiet exit, but it marked a turning point. Michael was starting to move further into his own world, one where he could call the shots, explore new ideas, and break from the traditions he'd been raised with. In a 2001 interview, he quietly mentioned that he was still part of the faith, which confused a lot of people. Had he returned? Had he never really left? The lines between public statements and personal belief were as blurred as ever. Just like everything else in his life, Michael kept the world guessing. When bad changed the game. Then came 1987, and with it, the kind of comeback that made the music industry hold its breath. Bad was his first album in 5 years, and the anticipation was unreal. He had already set the bar almost impossibly high with Thriller, but somehow he still managed to raise it. For the first time in history, an album produced 5 #1 singles in the US. Tracks like I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, and Smooth Criminal dominated the charts. Critics might have debated whether it lived up to Thriller, but commercially, Bad was a juggernaut. It topped charts in over 25 countries, earned countless awards, including multiple Grammys and American Music Awards, and racked up sales that, by 2012, were estimated between 30 and 45 million worldwide. It was a moment in pop history that made it clear Michael wasn't going anywhere. And then came the Bad World Tour, a spectacle that ran from September 1987 to January 1989. It was record-breaking. In Japan, he sold out 14 shows and drew in a staggering 570,000 fans. Over in the UK, Wembley Stadium became his playground. With 7 sold-out shows and a total audience of 504,000 people, he broke attendance records and even earned a spot in the Guinness World Records. In 1988, he decided it was time to tell his side of the story. Moonwalk, his autobiography, gave the world a rare look into the man behind the glitter glove. He wrote about growing up in Gary, Indiana, the rise of the Jackson 5, his strict father, the pressures of fame, and the loneliness that came with it all. The book didn't sugarcoat much, and fans devoured it. With 200,000 copies sold almost instantly, it shot to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. For someone so often described as mysterious, this was a moment of unexpected clarity. Even if his life still felt like a riddle, Moonwalk gave people the feeling that they finally understood a little piece of him. By the late 1980s, Michael Jackson had done something no other artist had managed. He became a global phenomenon with a crown to match. Elizabeth Taylor, during the Soul Train Heritage Award ceremony in 1989, famously called him the King of Pop, and the world wasted no time making that title permanent. Even President George H.W. Bush publicly honored him, naming him the Artist of the Decade, further cementing Michael's place in history. His fame wasn't the only thing growing. Michael's generosity also captured attention. Between 1985 and 1990, he donated an impressive $455,000 to the United Negro College Fund, a gesture that showed how much he cared about giving back. The profits from his hit single, Man in the Mirror, went straight to charity, reflecting the kind of person he wanted to be remembered as. Even television recognized his impact, and he earned his second Emmy nomination for his unforgettable performance during Sammy Davis Jr.'s 60th birthday celebration. While the world saw the dazzling gloves, moonwalks, and record-breaking albums, Michael Jackson's personal life was growing increasingly complicated. By the end of the 1980s, he was the biggest star on the planet. His music inspired millions, his fashion set new trends, and his compassion influenced countless fans. Yet behind the scenes, the pressures of living under such an intense spotlight began to show. In late 1993, in the middle of all his success, Michael's personal life took a surprising turn. After dating for a while, he proposed to Lisa Marie Presley, the only daughter of Elvis Presley, not with a grand gesture, but over the phone. They married quietly in May 1994 during a private ceremony in the Dominican Republic, far away from the flashing cameras. However, whispers soon started circulating. Some believed that the marriage had less to do with romance and more to do with public image management. Despite their high-profile union, the relationship quickly crumbled. By December 1995, they had separated, and in January 1996, Lisa Marie filed for divorce, simply asking for her maiden name to be restored. Their love story, which once seemed like a fairy tale, ended without much fanfare, leaving fans around the world wondering if it had ever been real at all. Michael Jackson changed pop music forever. From record-breaking albums to wild headlines and unforgettable dance moves, he lived a life no one could ignore. Even with all the fame, there were so many parts of him people never fully understood. That mystery made him even more fascinating. So what do you think made Michael truly unforgettable? The music, the magic, or the mystery? Comment with your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.